Right. What's up, everyone? You're listening to and watching Justin Needs a Hobby. I have a good friend here today. Her name is Jennifer. Is it Ackerson or
Ackerson.
Okay,
Yeah,
Ackerson.
you got it.
Jennifer Ackerson, y'all. How are you today?
Doing good. It's
Good.
hot out.
Yeah, it's super hot. For people who don't know, we're in Dallas, and like August is the hottest month in Dallas. But luckily, tomorrow outside is only going to be a high of 88.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain.
Yeah, this is the first.
Thankfully.
I think this is the first time it's not going to hit like 100 in like 2 months or something like that.
Well, it feels like 115 out right now, so
Yeah,
I think it's gonna make up for it.
yeah, and
We're ready.
it's supposed to rain a lot next week too, so that's cool. But yeah, so I got introduced to Jennifer through some friends, one of her coworkers, and the coworkers, Des. She knows that I had been looking for people to interview about hobbies, and she suggested. She's like, "Hey, I work with this girl that's always doing cool things. She's always, doing stuff, and she's like a surf skater." And I was like, "A what?" She was like, "A surf skater." And I had no idea what that was, but automatically I was like, yes, I need to interview this lady because, first of all, I think that it's really dope that a woman is doing anything with skating. And then secondly, like I just never even heard of surf skating at all. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is surf skating. And for anybody who is new to the podcast, I always do this on each episode. Just kind of give them a rundown on what the podcast is and what it's about. The podcast is Justin Needs a Hobby, and basically, what I'm trying to do is just trying to get adults to be interested in trying new things and just doing things for fun again, rather than always focusing on work or just getting off of work and just going home and watching Netflix and you know maybe cooking dinner and then going to bed. So we're trying to get everybody to spice it up a little bit, change life up a little bit. What are your thoughts on that aspect of life in general, as far as like adulting?
I feel like everybody should have a hobby, um, or something. Just doing something that brings you joy, right? For me, it's movement. I used to work out at a place that was actually surf inspired fitness. And so, I think when people think of like, oh, I'm gonna work out, that's always an easy thing to like kind of defer to outside of your work life, right? Um, Finding something that actually is fun, that you don't look at as something that's necessarily challenging in like an unfun type of way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But something that you're like, you make time for it, you want to put it into your schedule because you don't think of it as work. You think of like, a lot of people are like, I go to the gym, I have to lift weights, or I have to run on a treadmill. And they don't actually enjoy that. But finding something that, like, oh, if I skate, I'm looking for time in my schedule that I can fit that in. When can I go to the skate park? When can I go outside? When can I do it with my friend to do that? And then it turns into something that is actually good for you. So I think everybody needs to have something like that, and not necessarily something that you're competing with other people. Maybe you're competing with yourself in a way that you're challenging yourself. But I think doing things that lead you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, enough to challenge you in a way that you grow, but that aren't like other things that are fun that you want to do still, right? That you're not competing with other people or comparing yourself to other people. You're just trying to monetize it, and it becomes work, right? It's just something that brings you joy, you do for fun. So I think everybody should have something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I like that you brought up the fact that like doing something that's good for you that doesn't feel like work in the gym is like a great example because there are times where I meet so I work out. I've been working out consistently for years, but I feel like a lot of people I meet, everybody wants to be in shape, right? Everybody wants to look good and feel sexy and be sexy and everything, but then like when it comes to that, but you got to work out and stuff, like that's where it gets hard. So like
The sweaty is not sexy.
yeah, right. So like you brought up a great point, like finding what it is that's going to keep you coming back and make it enjoyable. That's what's important in fitness, in my opinion. Like, you know, working out doesn't have to look the same for everybody. You know,
Exactly.
it's, you know, for me, it's going to the gym, but for someone else, it may be swimming, it may be skating, it may be tennis. Yeah,
Surfing, yeah.
yeah, some type of sport or something like that. So that's a very good point. So surf skating.
Yeah.
What is surf skating?
What is surf skating? Great question. So surf skating is a type of skating where you're on a surf skateboard. So the surf skateboard is a little different from a regular skateboard in that the trucks, so like the metal piece underneath that like holds your wheels.
Okay.
Most skateboards, that's going to be pretty stationary, pretty stiff, unless you're pretty good, pretty seasoned. Maybe then you like loosen your trucks up a little bit. A surf skate has those trucks that that pivot, so that when you're on the board, you can actually turn and swivel. And so that is to help mimic the like the motion of being on a wave. So the idea is to ride like a concrete wave, right? So the surf skate was also kind of designed to help surfers take that surfing technique out of the water. So if you go out, say you live at the ocean, right? You're a surfer. You go out, waves are flat. You can't surf, right? So a lot of surfers are also skateboarders. So they kind of came up with this way to like modify the board to be more curvaceous, again, to mimic like carving on a wave. So the momentum, like when you're on a skateboard, you'll usually like step and push, right?
Okay, yeah.
On a surf skate, you just pump. So you should be able to keep both feet on the board and kind of use this really funky wiggling motion kind of to be able to pump on the board without ever having to put your feet down.
So a pump would be like what?
Pump is what gives you momentum to go forward.
Okay, and it's
So-
just like pressing, maybe pressing both feet down on the board, like kind of like jumping or what?
So it's really weird to explain. So I recently I went on a surf retreat, and as part of the surf retreat, they did surf skating as just part of the technique there, right? And so this group that I went with, they have an online platform. They do all kinds of fitness and all sorts of surf inspired things, right? So they have a surf skating program, and like the girl who teaches the program, who was also my teacher on my retreat, like she puts it in this way of like, it's just something you kind of have to feel. It's really hard to explain. But when I was doing the program online, that was the one part that was really, really tricky. Because they can give you different instructions on how to do your turns and how to like do your front side turn and do your back side turn and what your form should be like and how to use your arms, your shoulders, your hips, your knees, all of that. But when it came to, okay, now you're gonna pump, now you're gonna get momentum, right, without putting your foot down and pushing. So that's really, really hard because the way that it's described, it's a lot of compound dynamic movements at the same time. So you're gonna be kind of going up and down. Your boards usually are a little bit more concave. That way when you press your toes forward, you go one way, and when you press your heels back, you turn and go another way. So again, it's this whole thing of like, you have to compress and decompress, and then you also have to lean on your toes and then lean back on your heels and keep that balance. Also while like paying attention and looking where you're going, because one thing I've learned is like, you will go wherever you look. So that was like, I think lesson number 2 on the board was like, oh, just look where you want to go. Because if you're like looking at a crack in the floor, you're gonna go to that crack in the floor. You're gonna go side. If you're looking at that big rock, you're gonna hit that rock, and you're gonna eat it. So that it's definitely one of those moves that takes a lot of practice. But once you're on your board and you're in your stance, I still have to use momentum. I can't like just start from nothing, right? And if you're in a little downhill, that's usually also very helpful. But to get that pump and that momentum going, you actually have to use your hips. So I kind of figured it out that if I use my hips to kind of carve in this almost like figure 8 type motion while going front side to toe side and then going up and down while doing that, I can move forward. I can wiggle my way forward. So,
Okay.
But trying to teach yourself is really hard. Trying just using having that little bit of experience, like that 1 or 2 hours that I had when I was on my retreat in El Salvador, like That was actually a lot of fun.
Oh, he's
Are you from El Salvador?
I'm from El Salvador.
Hey.
Yeah.
nice.
Which
I was
part?
gonna bring up because our shirt says like surf, skate,
I
pupusas,
didn't
and
see
El
that.
Salvador. Yeah,
That's cool. Yeah, they do surf a lot over there.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, but one thing about you explaining the motion,
Mm-hmm.
the idea that came to my head is like, so on a surfboard, you ride a wave,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like what you're explaining is you're on a board, but you are the wave
Mm-hmm.
that gives it momentum. Basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. It is nice in the ocean because you don't have to worry about falling hitting concrete. You have all that momentum behind you. So there's definitely a lot of similarities, but also it was very, very different. Yeah. But yeah, my retreat was in El Salvador. I went surfing down there in El Tunco back in 2021. So that was my first solo trip that I took. I didn't do any skating while I was there, and then I went for my birthday again this year with the retreat with the girls. So it was with a group of girls learning to surf, and then we did the surf skate session. And I ended up kind of going with another group of girls that had some more experience because I was like, this is fun. There aren't enough boards for everybody, so let me just hang out with them, and they can show me some tricks and stuff, and I can get a little bit more time in. So whenever I was doing that, one of the girls who was instructing us, like, it's almost like this half bowl, right? Because it's like a concrete wave. So it's not like a skate bowl where it almost looks like an empty swimming pool where you're just going in. It's kind of like half. It's almost like it's kind of sliced in half. So you can enter from the bottom, or you can enter from the top, or you can enter from the side. And it's not super steep or anything, but it's essentially just like a wall face that you can go up and down. So we were at the top, where it's this like big kind of flat area, and we were kind of going really slowly and practicing turns. And then the other girls were down at the bottom, kind of doing their own thing. And I was kind of practicing with them. And then the instructor, she's like at the top, and she's like, "Hey, does anyone want to practice going down and coming around?" And I was like, "I will do it. I'm having a good time. Let's go." I'm on vacation, YOLO, whatever. Like, let's just try it. So she's got me like by my pant leg, or like by my pant loop, my waist. And we're going down, and all of a sudden, like, I just started to feel like, holy shit, I'm going way too fast. So immediately, I tried to do what I would have done on a surfboard, which is like, okay, the back is the brake. I'm just gonna step on the brake a little bit. And so I go down this thing, and I'm going towards like this really crappy wooden fence. It's like at the top of a hill. I'm like, I can't run into that fence. And I go, and I press on the back of the tail of the board, thinking that's going to slow me down. And instead, the whole board went out from underneath me, fell on my ass, got hit on my ankle by this board, and like gashed my ankle. I got like a scar down here.
Oh, dang.
And so I was in the pool, and in the ocean, and in like foreign water for about a week. So that thing did not heal until I got home. They didn't really give me anything good to put on it. They were like, here's some kind of off-brand hydrogen peroxide. So the whole rest of the week, like every time like my ankle started to bother me, I just was thinking about that moment that I was on the board. And I was like, if I had just committed to going instead of trying to slow myself down and stop myself, I would have been fine. And then I realized in that moment that I was like, just commit to your path. Like, even if you're going a little bit faster than is comfortable for you, just lean in and commit to it. Because eventually you will slow down, and like eventually you will turn out. From there, I was like, okay. So anytime I got in the water, got on the surfboard, it's like, commit. So when you're paddling in the water, it's just like, commit to the drop, commit to standing up, commit to your wave, and that was a really, really good way of like connecting that moment in the surf skate to the moment in the water of like, just your philosophy of what you're gonna do and how you're gonna do it. So that was my first lesson on the board.
Yeah, it's cool how like your failures can be something that you learn from. So like you took a hard fall, and then you learned from that. So I actually tried. I'm not a skater at all, but I did like many years back. I thought I was going to get into longboarding, and I went and got a longboard. I ordered one off of like Amazon or something like that. And I was like, bro, this could be a cool way to just get around town and stuff like that. And I know nothing about it. And I had two roommates at the time, and One of them was out of town, but then one of them was there, and he was like, "I'm gonna come watch you." And because I was just starting to get the hang of it, just barely, I was barely able to like get up and kind of turn the longboard and stuff. And I was like, "Man, I'm gonna try to go down this hill." 'Cause we live like at the bottom of this hill. I was like, "I'm gonna just go like halfway up this hill and try to go down." And like,
I already know what you're gonna
yeah.
say. I already know.
You know where this is
But
going.
tell
Yeah,
me.
yeah. So I get up here and like my roommate's just waiting at the bottom. He's like, I know he's gonna fall. I know he's gonna fall. Man, so I'm going down and there's like this couple walking up the hill with their dog during the same time. And I'm like, I can't fall in front of these people. I'll be fine. Like I went down a smaller hill, I'll be good. I'm going down this hill, hit a rock or something, just flew face first, slid all across the concrete, like literally probably like 5 feet in front of this couple. And they were just sitting there, just like eyes all big, like, oh my God, is he okay? Is he okay? And at the bottom of my hill, my roommates just bent over, laughing so hard. It was
I'm like, are you okay? Are you wearing safety equipment? You have a helmet on? Are you right?
I didn't have none of that. And my teachable moment was I'm not a skater. So I gave up on it after that. I actually gave it to my roommate after that. But it was that was my teachable moment. But yeah, I didn't have the courage to get back on. But I think that it's dope that you did. You brought up surfing quite a bit. Like, do you have a background in surfing at all, or
What would we call a background?
so like what? Okay, so like what got you in? Like, were you into surfing before surf skating,
Oh,
or
yeah.
oh okay,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think probably since like I was maybe in middle school, like always just was interested in it and kind of wanted to do it. All my girlfriends kind of were the same way, were my friends at the time. Like Roxy and Quicksilver. And I'm like, oh, the girls who can go surf and look cool and whatever. So I think at one point when I was 18, I went on a trip with a girlfriend of mine, and we were actually in the Caymans, and we were having a great time. But she was like, "Man, it'd be really cool to go surfing," and I was like, "I want to go surfing," and so she was like, "Well, cool, let's go." So after we graduated, we went to Hawaii for 2 weeks, or we went to Maui for 2 weeks. Which, if you're 18 and you're in Hawaii for 2 weeks, like you can't rent a car, you can't. There's so much like you can't do yet, and we didn't know what we were doing. Right, like we're not experienced travelers, so we were just excited to be there, and we went and rented longboards, and we're like carrying them like through town, like up to our hotel room, and like what, like why did we do that? It was so dumb.
did you ride them at all, or
Once, I think we had them for a week. We rode them once. We didn't go with an instructor, and like we paddled out beyond the break, and then just sat there for like an hour or so. Got really, really sunburned because the sun in Hawaii is very different. I think we paddled in because we just didn't know what we were doing. And like, I feel like I looked over and there's this little kid, he's maybe like 5 or 6, and he's just like totally shredding. And I'm like, what? Like, you can do it, why can't I do it? What did we do wrong? So after that, it was just like, this is a pain in the ass. But now I'm just like, oh my God, if I was in Hawaii for 2 weeks, I'm like, every day, we're going every day that we can go. But I had no idea what we were doing. After that, like, kind of wasn't in a situation with work or financially at a place where I could like really travel or do anything related to surfing. But once I did get to that point, like I'd kind of go once a year somewhere in Central America usually, and go surfing then. So since about 2013, I usually try to take a trip once a year.
nice?
And then now we have Waco Surf. Or actually, it used to be BSR and it rebranded to Waco Surf. And there's another place in Austin that I think Kelly Slater owns now, or he's doing something with. So it's not public right now, but the one in Waco is there. And I'm just like, well, if I can't get to Mexico or El Salvador or Costa Rica or Nicaragua or somewhere, like I can at least get to Waco.
Yeah.
So this summer between trips, like I've been going there and kind of practicing a little bit. So that's been cool. But yeah, always been interested in surfing. Always wanted to do it. Again, like I was an instructor at City Surf, which is the surf fitness place that I talked about. So I went there for about 4 years. And it was cool again to be able to kind of take some of that technique and apply it in the water. But again, it's just always been kind of that interest that I've had, and incorporating that into fitness in some way. So they closed during the pandemic. And earlier we were talking about diversifying income streams. And like during the pandemic, at one point I had 3 jobs. I was a fitness instructor there, worked at Mosaic down the way, and then had another job somewhere else. But my full-time actual job.
Okay.
So diversifying the income streams, and it like literally took an act of God to like be like, hey, no, you can't have 3 jobs right now. You can only have 2 jobs. But it was really just, my heart was broken whenever the fitness studio closed. And so because of COVID, like there's so many more platforms online. And then I got introduced to the Salty Club, which is all surf inspired and surf related fitness. And so it's these women that are actually, 2 of them are Canadian, one of them's Australian, and they live in different countries in Central America. And so they run a travel agency that does the retreats, and then they have the online platform that's all the fitness stuff. So, and they're the ones who have the surf skate program that's online that I've been using. So it's all kind of interconnected in different ways, and it's just always been an interest of mine. So it's like one thing that kind of leads to another thing that leads to another thing. So I don't know, we'll see if this leads me somewhere else.
Yeah, and did you have any like skateboarding background at all either, or just?
No. To me, skateboarding is for like the 13-year-old boys that you go to middle school with. And it's like the thing that like they want to do. It's funny, your longboarding story reminded me of my younger brother. He had an experience really similar to that. He was like, yeah, I got on the longboard and going 40 miles an hour and crashing. He's like, and I will never touch it again. And I was like, yeah, that's probably smart. But the funny thing about that is, so I was doing this program, got the turns down, been practicing the turns on my own, just trying to figure out the pump. Like, how do I keep going? How do I just do the move and keep going? So I took myself to the skate park, which that's kind of a separate conversation. But I ended up taking myself to the skate park after numerous failed attempts, and ended up getting kind of like semi-adopted by a longboarder.
Okay.
So I'm out there in the park, and this guy like rolls by and sees my board, and he's like, oh cool, I almost brought my cruiser too. And I was like, is my board a cruiser? I don't think anybody's called it a cruiser, but okay, cool, whatever. So we kind of ended up talking, and I was explaining my board to him, and so he was like, oh, that's really cool. So, and this has happened a few times where people are like, what is that? And I show them, like, yeah, go try it. And it's so much different than like a standard like skateboard or a longboard, because they're just so much more stiff. You don't have, again, that turning radius. So he tried it out, and immediately this guy's just pumping along.
Dang.
And I was like, excuse me, sir. I've been trying to get this for like a couple of months now. Like, what are you doing?
How did you do that?
And he's like, oh, you just wiggle. And I was like, okay, because I'm on YouTube. I'm like trying to get some more follow up to the program that I've been using and trying to figure it out. So, there's kind of a difference there of trying something on your own versus having someone there to help you and actually teach you and show you tips and tricks and stuff. So when I'm alone, I'm like very focused and very mindful and aware of like my own body and what I'm doing, and like repetitive and like practicing the same thing over and over, because nobody's there watching me, right? I can just kind of do how I want to do it. But then you kind of need to have someone else there for you to be like, oh, okay, well, maybe you think you're really low, but like you need to get lower, or you need to pump harder, or this is how you need to do it. So having that additional person there to be like, oh, you just do it this way, and just show you, because that's not something where you're necessarily going to get from like YouTube tutorials or things like that. So then it was like, okay, now I have someone I can maybe go to the skate park with, or you can teach me other things. And then he introduced me to a group of longboarders who go to one of the parking garages downtown. And they just go and they start at the top floor and they just bomb this parking garage. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm gonna surf skate. Like,
what is bomb? Is it like skater terms?
It just means you're gonna go really fast. Like you starting at the top of that hill and just going, like that's like bombing the hill.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So in a surf skate, like I get too wobbly because again the trucks are loose. So I don't have stability to just like go straight down. Plus that's not really what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go down a hill, like especially if it's steep, I have to weave and do cutbacks. But that's good because that helps me practice my turns. So my front side and my back side turn and then like work on that. But if I get going a little too fast, like I still am figuring out how to stop if I'm going fast.
Oh, okay.
So it's either like find somewhere where you can turn upward to slow yourself down, or I'm not sure. I still have to work with some people and figure that part out. But I'm just like I can't do what you're doing. But like they'll seriously start at like the 13th floor of this parking garage and just go down and down and down until they get to the bottom. And like the goal is to go as fast as you can.
Jeez, but no stopping. They just
No stopping.
Wow.
But they have helmets and they have like some guys come wearing leather jackets. They look like motorcyclists.
I want to come see this. Like low key, that sounds like fun to just even watch, just to see people like going down fast on an empty parking garage. That'd be dope.
Okay, I'll give you the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might have to go down there and get some content. Why? Go down there and see what we can find out.
Yeah.
How long have you been surf skating?
So I started. Let's see. I'm trying to count backwards. So I did the first session in January on the retreat, and then after I got back, I decided to order myself a board. So that was also an adventure. I don't know why I did this. I don't know what I was thinking. But my board and I are now in a relationship because I have a custom board.
Oh, you went all out then, huh?
No, this was completely a mistake because there are not enough like YouTube videos out there on what to do or even how to like put your board together. So the program that I signed up, so I came home, I was like, cool, I'm gonna do the surf skate program, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna get bored, we're gonna do this. So again, this is like end of January, beginning of February. Now we're having all these supply chain issues and all this stuff, and because of COVID, I think everybody wants a hobby, right? Everyone's got 5 bikes and roller skates and skateboards and whatever. So I get online and I'm like, okay, I'm watching my program. They're giving me all this advice on which type of boards to buy because where do you even start, right? So I go through all of that, figure out, okay, I want this type of board. Let me go ahead and order it. So one of the brands is called Smooth Star. They're from Australia. So I go online and I'm looking and I see that there's like a Smooth Star for, I don't know, like $120. And most of the boards are about $400.
Oh.
So it's like
kind of pricey.
yeah, kind of pricey. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, oh, I found this really good deal on this board. And I'm like, it's authentic. It comes from their site. Like, all right, cool. So it's coming from Australia. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for me to get. And I'm like, every day I'm like really impatient. Like, where is this thing at? Because I'm ready to go.
Checking that tracking number.
Oh yeah. It was in California for like 2 weeks. So I was like, it took my baby forever to get across the ocean. Like literally like surfed its way here. But I get it, and I go down to my apartment complex, and it's like in the box. It's like leaning against the little mail slots or whatever. And I'm like, that seems like a really thin box. And I'm like, I already know what happened. I'm just like, I bet it's just the deck, and that there are probably no wheels on this thing. I'm like, maybe it's just not put together. And I pick it up, and it's really light, and I'm just like, okay.
Oh,
so I get it up to my apartment, and I open it, and sure as shit, I just ordered the deck. And I was like, it's legit from them. It's just not the whole piece. So I'm going, okay, now I have to find trucks, order those, and then put them on here. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go back to their site and order the trucks, and it's almost like I paid for just a regular board. But then I have to do the extra work of putting it together. Go to their site, you can't order their trucks separately. So I was like, all right then. I have to get different trucks from a different company. So then I'm looking for those. So then I ended up ordering some Carver trucks. So Carver is also like the original surf skate brand. They're based out of California. So I ended up getting the trucks from them. Takes another 2 weeks. So after about a month or so, I finally have all the pieces. And then I'm like, okay, now I gotta find my tutorial on how to put all this shit together, because I'm like, what goes in the front? What goes in the back? Which way does it face? Where do the bolts go in? And there are risers, and there's all this technical stuff. But if you go online, there's actually a lot of technical videos about like the wheels, the bearings, like which boards to use, how to clean them. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. Just tell me how to put it together. So eventually, like I'm on the Carver site, like zooming in on like all the boards to like figure it out. Also, the trucks I ordered, I made sure that I did some research on that too, because they have about 3 different types of trucks that do different things. And I'm like, okay, as a beginner, I want to make sure that I have some stability. So I find the ones that I want. I think I'm ordering them, and then when I look at them up close on the website, I was like, they didn't have them labeled correctly, so I actually ended up getting a different set of trucks than what I thought I was getting. But they're fine. They're great. Love them. No problems. Was able to put it together. So like I said, me and this board are like now in a relationship. So it took me about an extra month or a month and a half or so before I could actually start doing it once I ordered and put everything together. So all told, the short answer to your question is I think I started around like late February, early March.
Okay.
So
this is still fairly new, but I mean, we're approaching September, so you got some skin in the game. It's been probably 7-8 months or something like that.
Yeah, about 6 or 7.
6 or 7, yeah. My math was not my strong point, y'all. It's not my strong point. But no, that's cool. So like, what would you say is the first step for somebody who's listening on getting involved in surf skating? What would you say would be the first step?
I think the first step would probably be figuring out what type of board you want, if you decided to do it. So if I'm trying to convince somebody to do it, I think that's maybe a different step. But if someone's like, yeah, I want to try that, I would be like, okay. I would probably direct them to this site called, I think it's called I Love Surf Skate. And he's actually an older gentleman. When I say older, I think he's in like his late 40s, maybe early 50s. But he's this guy who like has never surfed a day in his life and is obsessed with surf skates.
Really?
He owns tons, and he does all these different videos, all these like tutorials on the equipment to the technique. But yeah, he had some really great videos on the different types of boards, comparing them. So that's where I started. And then so once you decide what board you want, then you order it. But I don't think that there's really like, at least I haven't found like a surf skate community in Dallas. It's kind of a weird place to look for it. So like I said, like I've just been adopted by some longboarders, and getting out there, it's one thing to practice your hobby on your own. And I think that's a different set of goals and objectives that you're trying to achieve when you're just doing it on your own. Whether that's, my goal is to just have fun, or my goal is to get better at this turn, or my goal is to not be afraid of going fast, or to try this new thing. That's going to be much different than when you're with a group of people, because you're gonna just learn things by being exposed to other people who are practicing your same or similar hobby. But finding a community is, I think it's a little bit tricky. So, either you're just doing it for fun because you want to, and you can, find different ways to engage in that, whether it's finding a program that will walk you through it, because there are lots of pay-to-play programs, there's lots of free programs that you can start with, or just going out there in person and being like, hey, I'm new, help me. And people will do that. A lot of people I'm this way, like I like sharing my knowledge. So if I went out, to the park or a skate park or somewhere and saw somebody with a Carver or a Yow or a Smooth Star, and like saw that they were on a surf skateboard, I would be like, hey, what can you do? Let's hang out. Like, what can I show you? What can you show me? So there's just there are different ways to approach it. Yeah. But I feel like every skate session is different depending on where I'm at and what I'm doing and who I'm with. So.
Go further into that. Like, why is every skate session different?
Like you said, teachable moments. I feel like I learn something new almost every time I skate, and that for me, like that's really a huge part of it. Yeah. I think as adults, that you've never really hit a wall learning, but it's really easy to feel that way. Of like, oh well, I've done this or I've done that, or I'm this place in my career. Oh, you get stagnant, you get bored, you get into a routine. Which, let me just say, with COVID, routine was one of the things that I figured out was something that was really important that we all take for granted. Your
Really?
routine is your stability, and that was something I talked about when I taught too, of like, one, just showing up is the most important thing. You just showed up, all you have left to do is do the work, right? So whether that's your hobby, your work, just showing up and just getting there, I think we take for granted definitely like how much effort that actually takes.
That's true.
So just showing up, super important. But the other thing about, so for me, like I've been working out for 4 years. I've been going to the same studio, kind of doing the same things. Once you get into a routine, like you're just kind of going through the motions sometimes. You're like, I can do that. I know I can do that. You're just doing it. You're doing it without thinking. You're doing it by rote. But what excites you? Like, what's going to light your fire to not just be doing your routine, right? So I was thinking about that a lot of like, well, I'm just kind of in this routine. Do I feel stuck? Whatever. But then you realize the smallest things can trip up your routine. And when you don't have that, there's like this kind of ripple where you're like, oh gosh. And I talk about this in work too, like change management, like anytime something changes in your environment, like even if it's small, like you may not realize like how much it actually affects you. So kind of the same thing with hobbies. So
Yeah, I remember. So like on the very first episode of this podcast, I had a friend of mine who's a psychologist, Dr. Jamari Akins, on here, and he mentioned how one of the exercises that he has his clients do if he feels like they're just in this routine and they need to like spice things up a little bit. He said he will just try to trip up their routine a little bit, and he said the easiest thing, like one of the things he starts with is he'll have he'll have whoever his client is like just take a different route into work that day. And he was like, usually like that's enough sometimes to just get somebody to do something different, because they may notice a new restaurant that they want to try for lunch that day or something like that. But just like, yeah, routines, they can get boring and everything. That's actually why I got into wanting to try hobbies in the first place myself, is because I just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again every single day. Wake up, go to work, go work out, make dinner, go to sleep, do it over and over again. I was like, this can't be life. And that's why I kind of wanted to start this. Well, it's not kind of, it's exactly why I wanted to start this podcast, is to get people out of, doing those same routines over and over again. And but to go back to something that you brought up earlier, when we were talking about how each one of your each time you skate is different. Like I can relate to that just from I like to ride my bike. One of my hobbies is riding my bike, and I noticed, every single time, it doesn't matter how many times I ride, I see something new. Even if I take like the exact same route, I'll see something new. Whether it's a new house that I didn't notice before, or a new person, or some type of new tree, or just random things that just stick out to you every single time. That's just different, and it does. I don't know. It just those. I appreciate the differentness. I don't even know if this is a word. The uniqueness, I guess,
Right.
that it gives me every single time.
Yeah.
So that is kind of what keeps me going back. Is like, oh, what am I going to see today? Like, what's going to be different? And it makes it exciting. It adds that excitement to the hobby for sure.
Yeah, just never. You kind of never have the same route twice.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think those things are probably what keep you coming back to that. Because if it does become so routine, then it does become boring and kind of stale, and you're like, how can I mix that up? Like routine, like I said, is something that we do take for granted once we have it. But when you do have it, and you are fortunate enough to have it, then you have kind of that privilege of being able to like add more, right? And so that's something that I think shouldn't be taken for granted, is being able to add those things and spice up your routine, or whatever that means. For me, like if you want to just boil it and boil it and boil it and boil it, I like to be active. I like to be outside. I like to incorporate movement into my everyday where I can. And if I don't, I'm usually kind of unhappy and I'm a little sour. So it's like, hey, did you see the sun today? Did you touch some grass? Did you move? Did you breathe? Did you actually breathe today? So for me, any type of hobby that I have is going to kind of boil down to that. Does it allow me to move? Does it allow me to breathe? Does it allow me to maybe get outside and get some sunshine? I think, innately we're all just like these very natural creatures. Like we're raised on Earth, like we're Earthlings, like we're under the sun. And so I think being outside is something that is, even if you say you don't like being outside, I think everybody does. I think everybody gets something out of like that vitamin D, that sunshine, that fresh air. Maybe you think you're not a mountain person. You go to the mountains and you're just like in awe of the mountains.
That's me. That happened to me. That happened to me last year. So I went to Colorado for a wedding, and we went to Breckenridge, and it was during the summer, so it wasn't like during ski season or anything. But one of the days we went out and we did some hiking and stuff, and I was like, I kind of finally understand. I've never understood why everybody was so obsessed with Colorado until that trip. I was like, I get it now, because I had only been to Denver. But like that time I had been to Breckenridge, like actually in the mountains, in a mountain town. And I was like, oh, this is like gorgeous. This is nice. Like this is something that I could see myself coming to do during the summer, not during the cold. Because I'm not doing this, like, not that I'm against, well, I am kind of against skiing. Because I just hate cold. I am not a cold weather person. I hate snow. Like, yeah, I would much rather try surfing than trying skiing, which I'm gonna try. Well, I'm not. So you brought up Waco Surf earlier, and I told you I'm going there on Friday for the first time.
You're gonna do the cable park?
I'm gonna do the cable park because I'm not gonna. From what I've heard, like you have to like book the surfing like way in advance or something.
Yeah.
But so I'm not gonna get to surf, which I'm okay with doing the cable park because that looks fun too. For people who are listening or watching, there's this huge, like, is it the biggest in the nation? What is it even, like, what would you describe Waco Surf as?
Like an outdoor water adventure park, kind of?
Yeah.
Because they have the wave pool for surfing. They have the lazy river. I think the lazy river is like the biggest one in the state or something. I got in expecting to be in it for hours, and it was only like maybe 45 minutes, and so I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, because on their website or somewhere they say it's like the biggest in the world or the biggest in the nation,
something like
allegedly.
That.
But
it's not that long. But I mean, it does go fully around the wave pool. They have that. They have slides. They have the cable park. They have some other stuff on site. So I guess recently some minor celebrities were in the area, and they were there surfing and skating. And so I talked to my surf instructor and I was like, hey man, I saw that somebody was skating in a bowl here. And he was like, oh yeah, we do have a bowl on site, but it's just for pros. And I was
that's messed up.
I'm like, listen, I already signed a waiver to be here.
Yeah.
Like, the bowl I think is wooden, but the floor of the wave pool is actually concrete. So I'm like, which one's actually more dangerous? Like, come on. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. But I think there is like a really cool skate park in Waco. My friend and I were gonna go last time we went, but we were tired. We didn't. But I still haven't explored all of Waco Surf yet, just because I'm like, I have my appointment. I have my surf appointment. Hold on. And then after that, usually I'm like kind of too spent to really do much else. So.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that because I'm gonna be doing the cable surfing or cable.
Like things like wakeboarding.
Yeah, cable wakeboarding or something.
Or
yeah, I've never done anything like that, so I'm excited to do that. I have a bad ankle, so I just hope it doesn't go bad or anything. But back to surf skating real quick. You said that the community isn't huge in Dallas, so with you being a woman. Have you found many other female surf skaters in the area at all, or no?
No.
That's why we need y'all, ladies. Come hang out with Jennifer. Get you a surf skate and hang out with Jennifer. You got one friend here already.
So part of me is like, maybe I just need to like make a QR code or make like a cool flyer or something and go paste it in some of the skate parks and start trying to like find some other people. They don't have to be girls. just people who are interested in doing it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then my longboarding friend, and he was like, "Hey, come hang out with us." He's like, "I know somebody who has a surf skate." So when I went and did the parking garage with them, the guy had his surf skate out. So I got to try his board, and that was kind of fun. Like we do like this board sharing thing, but also I think this guy kind of lied to me about his experience, and told me he'd been doing it for like a really long time, and all his friends were like, "No, he hasn't skated that long. He doesn't know what he's doing." So I was like, "Oh, okay, well I guess he can't really help me, but okay." So part of that was like, can you introduce me to other people who may have this experience or have a board? I did convert my longboarding friend to the Church of Surfskate. So he ended up getting one. So now we can surf skate together.
Influencer, I like that.
That's right. I got one on my team. But there are communities of women surf skaters, kind of placed differently throughout the world. Probably the most prominent one that I can think of is called Girl Swirl. And so it's this woman, she's had this organization for I think like 4 years or so, and she's based out of like I think Venice, California.
Okay.
And so she's got a few like sponsored surf skaters as part of her brand, I guess. So they're kind of influencers, and they do surf skate meetups in California. They've got a chapter in New York. They've got one in Paris. I feel like they may have one in Mexico City, but they're kind of trying to, it almost seems like, franchise out these groups so these girls can come together and surf skate. It's really cool, and I just get so jealous because so they also partnered with Carver, and they have their own Girl Swirl board.
Oh.
And I was so pissed because after putting my deck and my trucks and like buying them separately and then putting them together, I was like, for the same price, actually for less, I could have just bought the Girl Swirl board. It's a Carver with the same trucks that I have. And so I was just like, man. But
your story is way more cooler with how you got your board.
It's annoying. It's like, oh no, you just don't know what you're doing. But you know, but again, you take missteps and you figure it out, and like later on, like,
it probably means a lot more to you that you.
Oh yeah,
built
we're in a relationship now.
Yeah,
like, we're committed. Me and the Johan de Fay are. It's named after a French surfer. The style of boards, and they do that. They name some of the different surf skates after different surfers, which is also very cool. But yeah, I'm just like, man, can Girl Swirl have like a chapter here and it can just be me? Like,
yeah, start it. Like, honestly, hopefully somebody hears this and then like, whether they're male or female, they just they get interested in it. Because like I said, I never even knew what it was until I met you. I never even heard of it. So hopefully this will get the word out, and you'll find some people around Dallas. It's a huge city, so I guarantee there's got to be at least a handful of people who either do it or are interested in doing it.
Yeah, I gotta find them. And I just so wish that like City Surf was still out there and had studios, and then we could partner and do something together. Hey, we're gonna do like surf fitness, but then we're also gonna do like some surf skating and kind of weave that back together. But when I'm out and about, I've seen a couple girls on skateboards, but mostly I see girls on quads. So quads are like roller skates that are equipped like for the skate park or for tricks, or I see less people like dancing and doing like disco skating and things like that, unless I'm like at a rink. But when I'm out, it's definitely more like aggressive like park skating. I did go to a competition that was sponsored by one of the local skate groups. But like quad skate groups.
Oh, okay.
So it was guys, it was girls, it was all different ages, but they were out at Alliance and they were doing different tricks and stuff. So that was actually really cool. But there's definitely a larger community of women who roller skate. So a lot of them come from derby or speed skating. But they're in the parks, they're on the ramps, they're doing all kinds of tricks. My best friend picked that up a couple years ago during the pandemic.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think it's dope that you guys picked up things during the pandemic, because some people did not. Some people,
and that is okay.
And hey, whatever people needed to do to get through it, like I'm with you, but like I definitely thought that was a great opportunity with all that time to try something new and to pick something up and gain a new skill in something. So I have a lot of respect for people who have picked something up over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and they've had the time to like actually practice at their hobby or their craft or whatever it is that they're doing and get really good. My friend has actually gotten very good at quad skating. So recently she was in Mexico and I came to visit her. That was also another adventure of packing the board and taking the board with me
Nice.
to another country. So that was a lot of like advice and tutorial videos and what to do there. But we were able to go skate together in Baja. So then they have bowls and they have, I think if you're closer to the ocean.
That was that recently?
Yes, that was.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
I remember I was trying to schedule and schedule this interview and this episode I should say, and you were like, oh, I'm going to Baja for a couple weeks, can't do it, and I was like low key jealous as hell, like whatever.
Baja is great. I will give you plenty of travel tips if you would like to go there. It was expensive as hell. I was thinking it was going to be a cheap trip. Like, oh, like I fly into Cabo, that'll be like a couple $100, no big deal. No. No. Gas is expensive, we'll just say that.
Yeah,
Gas for that airplane was expensive.
Yeah, the flights have been crazy these last few months for sure.
But we were on the beach and we met a guy who owns one of the skate bowls. He's like, oh, the Pescadero skate bowl, I own that. There's like a mini half ramp like on the way to the beach. Like you're literally in the desert. It's not a paved road. There's little surf camps and hostels and stuff. And then like, oh, this restaurant has a half pipe. Like why? Like why is it there? But and there was a really big skate park in La Paz. La Paz is a really beautiful part of Baja. That's on the like inner coast, so kind of where the Gulf of California is. Really calm waters, really clear, really beautiful. But it had like a huge skate park and nobody was there. Like next to nobody was there. So we got to go and have that park to ourselves. My friend had posted about it before I came to visit her. And I was like, we're going there, right? We're going to go skate there, right? And she was like, yeah, it's like an hour away. And I was like, I don't care. We'll make a day of it. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that was fun to be able to skate overseas and do that. I actually injured myself right before my trip. So I work out in Irving and there's a little park over there. It's called Lively Skate Park and it's across the street from like Irving High School. So when I say going to the skate park, it was kind of an adventure. I'd get myself ready, I'd put my like, clothes on, I'd get my gear, and I'd drive over to the skate park, and then I'd be too scared to get out and actually go skate in the park because there were people there. So it's like all these teenage boys hanging out in circles with their friends, and like two of them would actually skate, but then like everybody's just kind of hanging out, chilling, and I just have this thing about like performance anxiety, like. Even if you can do something perfectly, if someone's watching you, sometimes you're just like, I'm just gonna fail just because you're watching. Even if you're like typing an email and your coworker comes in and is looking over your shoulder, you're like, I suddenly can't type now. Like you stole my typing ability. And it's just, and I'll joke with them too. I'll be like, it's just because someone's here watching. Like, you can do it. But I get really intimidated and I like would sit in my car and be like, maybe they'll leave. Maybe the herd will thin. And then no one will watch me and I won't look like a total goober, right? So I was like, all right, I'm on vacation. I'm gonna go skate and then I'm gonna go on this trip. So I show up, nobody is there. It's also like 100 degrees outside because it's the end of June. It's Friday, nobody's there. I have the whole park to myself. I was like, I've been blessed, so I'm just gonna do it. So I go out, I get about 5 or 6 runs in, and then I fall. And anyway, the way I fell off the board, I ended up scraping the other side of my ankle. So that scar I showed you on this side, well, now I have this guy.
Oh, dang.
It's really bad, yeah. And
is that the worst? What's the worst fall you've taken?
Probably that one. Just because, and I joke with my friend too, I told him he can't let me go to the skate park unsupervised anymore because when I'm unsupervised, I try things. I try things that I wouldn't normally try if somebody was with me watching me, right? Get a little more confident on my own. You're not looking at me. Let me go for it. And then I hurt myself. So that's the other thing about having a hobby as an adult. You're like, you don't have the same kind of resiliency or carefreeness that children have. Where you're like, oh, if I fall and eat it, no big deal. Like I can just bounce right back. It's like, no, you're not going to bounce right back. You're going to be injured. You actually have to think about those things and be careful.
Yeah.
But again, things like wearing pads, wearing a helmet gives you a little more confidence. Again, to go a little harder, try a little bit more. I'm always holding back a little bit more if I don't have all my stuff on. which, as I said earlier, is dangerous because you're not committing to your path. So you need
Yeah,
to commit
yeah.
to your path. But yeah, like I was trying to go up a ramp. I'm trying to learn how to do like a splashback or like a cutback. It's just basically tightening up my turn. So if you watch
Like
it,
the fast one, like the boom.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay.
So right now my turns are really wide, and I'm trying to get to more of a snap, right?
Mhm.
So I'm like, I just need some momentum. So I started on this ramp, went down, and went up this other ramp, and I still cannot do this. So my turn was so wide that I was going to go off the side of the ramp. And so I think I was trying to stop myself, and I came off the board, and my back leg tucked up underneath me. And then it just pulled so far that it like popped, like kind of something on the inside of my knee popped. And it just kept going further than it needed to go. And so a couple times I've fallen, like that's what's happened. So again, I need someone there to correct my technique or show me how to fall in a way that's not gonna drag my knee up underneath me, because at some point I'm worried that if I keep going on it and do that again, it's gonna be something that I'm gonna need surgery for, or it's gonna be something where I can't do that anymore, right? I can't skate anymore, or I shouldn't skate anymore. And injuries suck, and when you have an injury, you obviously want to take the time to heal. But if you have something that you really enjoy doing, or you've tapped into something you have a passion for, you're so impatient that you're going to go out and probably mess yourself up again. So
That sounds like bodybuilders. I feel like 90% of bodybuilders that I knew when I was in that community, I feel like 90% of us were pretty much injured in some way, but we would always still go back to the gym. Go back to the gym. Can't take a day off. And
it's hard. It's definitely a different mindset and a different mentality of like, your hobby is a form of self-care too, but actually physically caring for your body is a very important form of self-care.
Yeah.
So you can't skimp on that, and again, you have to take those extra precautions and be careful. But yeah. But thinking about the skate park, so as far as like there are a few barriers to entry of going into the skate park, and this was something that the Salty Club also addressed, because they talk about surfing and surf skating and all this stuff. One, being too scared to go in. So I think there's like 4 different layers there of why. So for me, it's 1, being an adult. I look at this hobby as something that like kids do and young people do, and you're gonna be self-conscious about like, I'm the old person in the skate park, right? I look like a dork. I'm gonna fall down. I'm gonna get made fun of. There's the safety part. I'm gonna get hurt. I'm gonna hurt somebody else. I'm gonna get in the way. And for me, it's like, I just don't want to go and get in someone's way and not know the etiquette or the courtesy or what I'm doing. It's kind of the same thing in the ocean with surfing. That's also one of my barriers there, like learning the etiquette and learning where I'm supposed to be and how to avoid hurting myself or hurting other people, right? The other part is being female. What other girls are there, right? Occasionally, there's the occasional like roller skater, the occasional skater who's actually there to skate and not just someone's girlfriend who's like, okay, I'll just try the board, ooh, pull me, like, okay. And then you show up and you're like, oh, are they just gonna think I'm someone's girlfriend, like hanging out? Or then when you get older, it gets into that territory of like, no, they think you're someone's mom.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
That's a whole new mindset to be in, and you're like, at what point do I just go with that? Like, yup, I'm Bradison Paxton's mom. I'm here. I'm just giving it a whirl. I'm giving skating a try. So it's again just like these compound layers of, I'm too old to do this. It's not safe. Who am I? Like, why am I here? And kind of getting over all of that and realizing that like nobody cares. No one's really looking at you. Nobody really cares.
Yep.
And if you go in with a good attitude and the attitude of making friends, you will make friends.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's exactly how it is in the gym too. I know so many people who don't go to the gym because they feel like they're gonna get judged or people are gonna be looking at them and all this stuff. Like literally nobody's looking at you or caring. Like if they're looking at you, it's probably only because they might want to use whatever piece of equipment that you're using. But that's about it. Like, but they're probably not gonna bother you about it. But No, those are cool things. Like surf skating sounds pretty dope. Honestly, it sounds safer than longboarding. I'll say
Because
that.
you're not going to go as fast.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot of fun. And some of the feedback that I've gotten from skaters is like, oh, this is how turning is supposed to feel. This is how the board is supposed to feel. This is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. And, my goal with surf skating isn't necessarily to like learn a bunch of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not trying to like ollie or backwards fakie. I don't even know what the terms are.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not trying to like kick up the board and do flips or anything like that. I'm really just trying to turn and like tighten the turn. And work on my form. That way, I've got like a muscle memory of when I am able to get to the water, of being able to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. I think it's fun to have people try it. It's fun for people who are used to skateboards trying it because they're like, whoa, this is so different.
Yeah, it's different.
They
it's
have
new.
an expectation. I think it's probably better for me that I never tried any kind of like other skateboarding, because I would probably have a different expectation. And it would be harder to adapt. So I think if you go in and it's something you've never done before, never tried, I think you're going to more easily adapt to it.
Yeah, like you have like a better advantage than somebody who's used to being on a skateboard or longboard or something. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I warned you, or I gave you a heads up coming in. Like I always ask all of my guests, I'm gonna give you an elevator pitch. This is your chance to convince whoever's listening, hopefully somebody in the DFW area. How can you convince them in 60 seconds or less to pick up surf skating?
I didn't think about this as hard as I should have. I know you warned me.
Please, this is your chance to plead with somebody to come out there and join you.
You want to have fun, get outside, challenge your body in new ways, and basically surf the concrete and feel the wind in your hair. Come give it a try.
That was I feel like you could have gave a little bit more, but I feel like you've also talked a lot about what you already talked. Yeah.
You just have to feel it. It's not, I don't know, it's not a hobby that takes you in a straight line. It's a hobby that takes you on a ride, and it's a fun ride.
Yeah.
So
I'm convinced. I would try it just to see what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah.
So another thing that I always do for my guests is I try to give them a gift that's going to either supplement their current hobby or introduce them to like a new hobby. So I got this for you.
Is it a first aid kit?
No. No, but that's a good idea. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. But go ahead and open it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's
I
from
was
the.
expecting to get gifts.
Well, yeah, but I had to show my appreciation for you
neat.
giving your time.
Yeah.
You want to show the camera?
Yes, it is a DIY tie-dye kit.
Yeah, so basically,
Very cool.
when I think of skaters, I think about people who wear like Vans and maybe a tie-dye shirt. I was like, oh, she might like that. But then also tie-dyeing in itself can be a hobby. You may, I've never done tie-dye, maybe you have, but maybe you enjoy it.
Oh my gosh, it's been years since I've done tie-dye. But this is definitely up my alley. My part-time job is working in a shop that's all makers. So it's people who hand make or hand design things. We have tie-dye in the shop. We have a really awesome vendor who does ice tie-dye. And she has some really beautiful pieces. So it's a similar process, just with ice cubes.
Oh.
But I love making.
So do you drink the ice? Or
No. She her tie-dye technique uses ice cubes.
Oh, okay.
So
gotcha.
she puts the clothing in the.
Okay, I thought that the ice was like tie-dyed. I was like, well, that sounds like a lot of work for something that's just gonna melt, but.
It would be.
Yeah. But hey, I just want to say thank you so much for coming through. I'm so glad we got to connect, and we're in the same neighborhood, so I'm sure I'll see you around quite a bit.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so you guys pick up surf skating or try it out, look into it. let us know if you if you pick it up, if you do it. Hit up the socials and everything. Let us know. Is there any way that how can people get a hold of you if you want people? I don't know if you want to shout out any social media or any businesses or whatever. This is your
My
chance
phone number, my
to.
social
Yeah,
security.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm on Instagram. It's just my name. It's Jennifer Ackerson, JenniferAckerson. It's just me. Kind of look like this. There's some stories of me on a surf skate. There's some pictures of me on a surfboard, and I'm usually hanging out outside. Also, there's just a lot of Halloween stuff in my Instagram that I noticed, which is totally fine. I just need to run with that and just commit to my path and just run with that. But yeah, find me on Instagram.
Cool. Well, thanks again for coming through.
Thanks for
Everybody, this is Justin Needs a Hobby. We will see you next time.